Hello everyone, this is Sainath and welcome to Mugiwara Codes. Today, my seminar topic is SQL constraints. SQL constraints include not null, check, unique, primary key, foreign key, and default. Constraint mean a restriction which is given while creating a table. Now, before going to the constraints, let's see what is a database, what is a database management system DBMS, and type of database we use, and why we use databases, and why we use SQL, and what is a SQL. Let's dive into all the details. Now let's see what is a database and database management system DBMS. A database is a collection of interrelated data which is used to insert, delete, or update the data efficiently. Means the database is a storage unit which is used to store the data, and the data can be deleted, updated, or inserted into the database. Now, a database management system is a software which is used to manage the database. That is, the data in the database can be managed by using database management system. We have many type of databases used, and we mostly use relational database, which is also known as the entity database. Now, we have got a doubt, that is why database is used and what is the reason behind that. The reason behind that is, before days, we used the file management system in which we store files in various locations and in various formats, which is very hard to retrieve and perform operations. When we use a database, the data is stored in a single unit and a single location, which is easy to access, and the performing operations is also easy. So we use databases over file management systems. There are various types of databases we use, and the list is given below of some of the databases we use. Centralized database system, distributed database system, NoSQL database system, relational database system, cloud database system, network database system, and object-oriented database system. These are various types of databases we use, and as I said before, we mostly use a relational database system, which is used to store the data in the form of the tables, and that include rows and columns. And a combination of rows and column is called a table, and the relational database is managed by relational database management system. And now let's see about relational database management system. We mostly use relational databases because they are very useful and very easy for retrieval of data. And in relational database, the data is stored in the form of the tables. A table is a collection of row and column. A row is also called as tuple and records, and column is called as domain and attribute. When we insert a data into the table, it is inserted into the table as a record, like a row. And why we use relational database? Because it has four major properties called ACID properties. A for atomicity, C for consistency, I for integrity, and D for durability. These four properties make the relational database special, and we use relational databases. The management system which manages this relational database is relational database management system. The examples for these are SQL, MySQL, and Oracle. Now let's see what is SQL. SQL means structured query language. It is used to store and manage the data in relational database systems, RDMS. In RDMS, the data is stored in the form of tables, which consists of rows and columns. Initially, SQL is called SQL, means Structured English Query Language, and the SQL is introduced by IBM Computer Systems in 1970. Examples of relational database systems, as we discussed, are MySQL, SQL Server, and Oracle. In SQL, we have different operations which manages the database system, such as inserting, deleting, and updating. Now, SQL has three components: SQL table, SQL statements, and SQL stored procedures. In SQL table, we discuss about the table, which is a collection of row and columns in which the data is stored. And SQL statements, which is also known as the SQL commands or queries, which are returned and ended by a semicolon, by which an operation is performed on the database. And the SQL stored procedures include collection of statements which are used in the storage of data into the database. Now let's see various types of commands or statements which we used in the SQL structured query language. There are various types of SQL commands which we use in SQL. Some of the commands which we use are given below. Data definition language. In data definition language, there are create, alter, drop, and truncate. In create, we create a table by giving the fields, and alter, we can alter a column, and drop, we can delete the table, and truncate, we can remove all the data from the table without deleting the table. Now, data manipulation language. In data manipulation language, we manipulate the data. That is, we can insert the data into the table, delete the data from the table, and update the data in the table. Transaction control language. In transaction control language, there are save point, commit, rollback. These are used when we want to undo the change. That is, when we update, delete, or insert any row, we can use this to undo to the save point which we created. Next, data control language. In data control language, we use grant and revoke. In data query language, DQL, we use select. Select means it selects the data and displays it on the screen in the form of a table, like it displays the data in the form of the table on the screen. Next, aggregate functions. Aggregate functions include count, sum, average, max, min, group by, having, order by, in which these are performed on the data. That is, the count tells how many records are there. Sum is the sum of the data, like when you take the students' marks as an example, and average is students' marks example, and max is maximum mark, and minimum is minimum mark. Group by, having, order, these are some of the aggregate functions also. Next, filtering data. When we are filtering data, we use these words there, where, and, or, between, like, in, is null, is not null, these kind of things. And combining data. When we are combining two tables, we use joins. There are inner join, outer join, left join, right join, full join, and some of the set operations, they are union, intersection, difference. These are the functions or commands which are used to combine two or more tables together. Now, when we talk about the constraints or the restrictions, they mostly deal with the DDL, data definition language. Like when we create a table, we alter the columns, drop it, truncate it. And next, it also deals with DML, in which we insert data, delete data, and update data. So when we are talking about constraints, we mainly use DDL and DML. So let's look at the syntax and examples of DDL and DML. These are the various SQL commands which we have to know before going into the SQL constraints. Firstly, we have to create a table. Here is the syntax for creating a table. Create table, table name, in which we give column name and the data type. If it is a number, we can give integer, and if it is a string, we can go for varchar, and number of characters to enter is given as size of the column. Now you can give column n up to n number of columns, and a table is created. Now how to delete a table? To delete a table, we use drop. Drop table, table name. And here semicolon is must for every statement, because SQL considers only the command which ends with semicolon as a command or query. So next, to display a table. To display a table with rows, we use select star from table name. That means from a table, all the rows are displayed onto the screen. Now, when we are discussing about rows, we have to insert the rows. To insert rows, we use insert into table name values and corresponding values for the columns you have created. And now let's look at the examples for these. Now let's see the examples for the before given syntaxes for creating a table, inserting the values, displaying the table, and deleting a table. Now let's write the queries for it. And firstly, we create a table with three columns: student ID, student name, and student branch. For student ID, we use integer, and student name and student branch, we use string. And for string, we use varchar, and number of characters are given in the parentheses. Nextly, we insert some values. Nextly, we display the table by using select, and we drop the table. Now let's create the table student. Now table student is created with three fields. Now next insert the values. Insert into student values. Let's give ID and let's go for name A and branch of CSE, and one row is inserted, and let's insert another row. Insert into student values 1 or 2 B, and let's give branch IT. Now, and one row is created. Now let's display the table. To display the table, we have to give select star from table name. So select star from student. See, now here the table is displayed with student ID, student name, and student branch. Now see 101, 102, A, B, CSC, IT are given here. And here when you see the student branch, it is fully not given because the varchar of 5 we have given only takes 5 characters regarding that column. So CS brand is given. So for varchar, if you want to display its name fully, you have to given 7. Be careful with that. And what happens if you give the characters like if you give 7 letters for the branch? Let's see what happens. Now insert, like if you go for something branch of A, B, C, D, E, H. Now let's see what happens. See, it displays an error. Actual we have given of 7 and maximum we can give 5. So these are the some of the errors you may get. And now here constraints are mainly used to take away the null values or the all the constraints we get. Now let's see, while inserting a value, if I go for all the null values, what happens? Null, null, and branch of CSE. Now what happens here? It takes one row is created. Now let's print and check what happens. Select star from student. See here, the null values are also accepted. When you are actually working on data, you do not want null values, right? So for this, we use SQL constraints. Now let's delete the table. Drop table student. Table is dropped. Now let's discuss constraints in SQL. There are various constraints in SQL. Constraint mean a restriction. Now let's look at the constraints in SQL. Firstly, not null. Not null is a restriction. It does not allow any null values or empty data into the table. As we previously discussed, we can give empty data. Now, when we use not null, empty data is not taken. Nextly, check. Here in check, we give a condition by which if only the condition satisfied, the data is entered into the table. Next, default. Here we give a default value for a column. Next, unique. Here, the unique means the data which entered must be unique and must be different from all the insert values. That is, there is no duplication of data. Next, primary key. Primary key is a restriction where the given data must be unique and not null, both at a time. And foreign key. Foreign key means in a table 1, there is a field, and in table 2, the same field is the primary key. So in table 1, it is called as the foreign key. That is, the primary key in the other table is considered as the foreign key in the other table. These are the constraints in SQL, and now let's go for examples regarding constraints and let's know how they work. Let's see the examples for SQL constraints, starting with not null. Now let's create a table. Create table student 1. Firstly, I'll go with student ID, integer, not null. Here it does not accept any null values as before it taken. So second one, we go for student name. Student name var of 10. Next, student age. Here it is student age. Student age is integer. Teacher, not null. Here I have given not null only for student age and student ID, but not for student name. So let's see the difference. Here table is created. Now insert some values. Insert into student 1 values. Firstly, let's go with 101 name A and age. Let's go with 20. Now it is inserted. Now let's give a wrong input. Okay, let's go with null, null, and null. And now we have a error. See, cannot insert null into student 1 SID. So that means the null value cannot be accepted here because we use not null. Now for student name, we have given nothing, like we have not used not null. So let's see if it takes null value. Okay, let's the age be 20 and 103. See, the input is taken. So if you use not null, null values are not taken. So now let's see the table printing. Select star from student 1. See, here in 103 3, we have given null value for name. We have used nothing. So we got a null value there. If you use not null, it will not accept null value. Now let's go with unique. Creating a table. Create table student 1 with student ID, integer, unique, and next student name, which is varchar of 10, and here for student ID we give unique. So let's check by giving correct input. Insert into student 1 values. So we give 101, comma 8. Now let's give the same input to check whether the unique property works or not. In SID, it is unique, so it does not accept 101. And for name, we haven't given unique, so it accept any value. So let's give the same input. See here, there is an error, that is unique constraint violated. So it only takes the unique values. Now let's give another input with unique ID and same name. Now the row is inserted. Now let's print the table. Select star from student 1. Now here it taken same name as we haven't used unique for S name. And now let's move on to primary key. For primary key, there are both not null and unique. Now let's create a table. Here I am creating table employee 1, employee ID, integer. It is a primary key. I want to take it as a primary key. And next I want employee ID, employee name. Here it is varchar of 20. Now table is created and we insert values. Insert into employee 1, values, employee ID 101, and employee name be A. Now one row is created. As I said, primary key is not null as well as unique. So if you give the same input like 101, it will show an error, or if you give a null, it will show an error. Now let's check. Insert into employee value 101. Yeah. Now it shows an unique constraint, and if we give null there, it will show a null constraint. So primary key is a combination of not null and unique. Now let's move on to check. Here the check checks the condition, and if the condition is right and it is satisfied, it is inserted into the table. Now let's create a table. Create table vote 1, citizen ID, integer, it should be unique, and next citizen name, it should be varchar of 10, not null. So I'm using not null and unique also in this along with check. And next we go with citizen age, which is integer, and here we go with check condition, that is check CH greater than 18. Now table is created. Now insert values into the table. Insert into port 1 values. Let's give 101, name as A, and age is 20. One row inserted. Now let's give the wrong input. Like age is 16. Now we have the error, that is check constraint violated. Means the given age is less than 18 and condition is false, so it is not inserted into the table. Now let's move on to default. Yeah, we give the default value for one column. Now let's see. Now let's create a table. Create table college. Now let's go with college name varchar of 10. Next we go with college ID int integer unique. Next we go with college address. This is varchar of, let's give 20, and here we give default as some district. Now the table is created. Now inserting values. Insert into college 3 values. Now college name let be A, college ID 101. Next college address we give it as something as G and T. And now the row is inserted. Now let's give default. Okay, the college name be B, ID be 102, and let's give FAU default. Now row is inserted, and now check what it will display. Select star from college 3. See, now here first one it is given G and T, and second one it automatically gave as DIST, which we given in the default. Now this is the default. Now about views. Views is a virtual table which is not stored into the memory, and it is only read only and can be updatable. Now how we can create a view? Before that, let's create a table. So here we are creating a table of employee, and here we are giving employee ID and employee name, and we are creating a view for this. Now let's insert some values, like insert into employee 5 values Here we give 101 name as something and now let's give some more values like B, and next we give as C. And now by using views concept, if I want only the names of the employee without their employee ID, I can create a view for that. And syntax to create a view is create view name as select. I want employee name. So name from what is the table name we have taken that employee file. Now here view is created. Now we can display view, that is select star from v1. Now here only employee name is print. So this is the concept of views. And now let's move on to foreign key. Let's see about foreign key. To explain foreign key, here we take a first table. In first table, the student ID is the primary key, and in second table, the order ID is the primary key. Now in second table, the student ID is same. Like when you see in the first table, the student ID is present, and in the second table also student ID is present. Here, in second table, the student ID, which is the primary key of first table, is treated as foreign key. So in the first table case, student ID is the primary key, and in second table case, student ID is the foreign key. So this is how primary key and foreign key are differentiated. And in second table, the primary key of first table is treated as foreign key. Now this is the concept of foreign key, and now let's look at the syntax of the foreign key. Here is the foreign key example for table 2. When you create table 2 orders, order ID is primary key and the student ID is foreign key references persons. So the first one is table persons. Their SID is here foreign key and there it is a primary key. So int foreign key references. So here SID is referenced as foreign key from persons table. Their SID is a primary key. Thank you everyone for listening to this seminar, and this is all about the SQL constraints, and in this video we discussed a lot of topics, and let's take a quick recap what we have discussed. Firstly, we discussed about the database, what is a database, and what is a DBMS, like database management system, and how they are related, and various types of databases used, and why we use only relational database, and in relational database how the data is stored, and relational database management system is discussed. And later we went to structured query language SQL, and we learned a few about it, and we learned all the SQL commands. In that majorly we learned about DDL, DML, and DQL. And next we came with our seminar topic SQL views and constraints, which are run in the terminal and showed you. And if you have any doubt, please comment under the video. And if you like this, please like and subscribe to Mugiwara Codes. Thank you, thank you, thank you.